Hello and welcome to the GenXplainers Podcast. Today, we revisit a popular and significant album from the past. We'll weigh in to find out if it lives up to its reputation. This is Revisionist Discography. Hello and welcome to another episode of the GenXplainers Podcast. And today, we will be looking at an album from 1980. It's Pretenders' self-titled debut album, Pretenders. So this album, as far as my personal history with it, it was a big album in our household. It was, I guess, officially part of a, was this, because it was a very interesting time. Some things were considered like punk. It was like 1980 and people were like trying to figure out what music was. And I think this one, from my memory, was sort of considered, it's a rock album, but I also think it kind of was shoehorned into it's kind of punky or something. Do you remember that at all, or am I totally?
Yeah, no, it was this and Blondie, and I never understood why they called either of them punk.
Yeah, well, I understand Blondie a little bit because where she play. I mean, like her roots and like CBG,
Yeah, but when I listen to the music, I never thought of either band as being punk. How about that?
Well, and Chrissie Hynde was from the sort of UK punk scene. She worked at what was it, Sex, the Vivian Westwood, Malcolm McLaren store. I think she even asked like Sid Vicious. She taught Sid Vicious how to play guitar.
Right.
And she even asked him to marry her so she could stay in the country, I think. Anyway. I'm sure someone will say like, oh no, she didn't.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Okay, well, so definitely from that scene, the band members, Chrissie Hynde, vocals, guitar, Martin Chambers on drums, James Honeyman Scott on lead guitar, and Pete Farndon on bass. And this lineup would be Pretenders' lineup for the first two albums.
Mm-hmm.
And then tragically, Honeyman Scott and Farndon, they both died.
Yeah.
Basically. And for a lot of people, what they know of Pretenders is from albums that came out after this one and the second one. There are certain songs they maybe knew, but they really think about, the Learning to Crawl and the Get Close Pretenders, those albums. But this is the Pretenders in my mind, and really love them. Yeah. So this album came out. It was on rock radio, and it was also maybe on the more, maybe it was on college radio, even saying it was kind of punky. It was out there, and it was pretty big.
Well, it was rock, and MTV played Brass and Pocket.
That one particularly
over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No one like me. I'm special, so special. I gotta have some of your attention. Give it to me.
When I started to re-listen to it for this, I'm just like, just the first track, Precious. I'm like, this is a calling card. It was like creating a sound already, like what Pretenders are going to sound like. And that song, it created a sound immediately, and I think the entire album spoke to like, this is who we are, and I like that element of who they are.
Yeah, I think that beginning of just like you hear like the guitar and the drum, and then you hear Chrissie Hynde saying, "Okay, we're starting," or something.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When I first heard the album, I was definitely in high school. Probably, I'm gonna guess my sophomore year. I'm not sure. But I fell in love immediately. It was something that spoke to me. It not necessarily lyrically, but from a music standpoint, I found it to be absolutely different than everything else I was hearing at the time. And it was a personal message kind of album too, for what I was feeling at the time as a teen, kind of thing. So I like all those aspects of it. And maybe that's where the punkish kind of element comes in. It's like it's speaking to a young generation. But I don't feel like the style of the album is punk, but I do feel like maybe it was speaking in that element of thematics and that personal element of like, I'm not satisfied, because there's a lot of songs in this that are, I'm not satisfied with life, but we're going to create this sound and this music to talk about these things and enjoy it.
I think the sound is very immediate and very direct in a way, and it's also very aggressive. It's power. It has power behind it.
Yeah,
and she embodies it so well, and I think that's something we didn't see too much of in rock.
Yeah.
What do you think, Al? What was your impression of the album?
So the first song I ever heard from it was Brass in Pocket, which got played, as Mike said, a lot, and the video. And I really liked that song, and it's a great song. But at the age that I heard it, I thought it was good, but it didn't grab me a lot. And it wasn't until I heard the album later, and I couldn't say for sure how old I was. I know I heard the single when it first came out, but it overwhelmed me. It starts off with Precious, which might be my favorite song on the album, and it just launches into, I mean, it's a musical attack. It just comes right out, and James Honeyman Scott and Pete Farndon, and of course Chrissie Hynde. It's just a fantastic record, and I loved it from the beginning.
Yeah,
that's my general impression of it.
Right. Yeah. So why don't we go through track by track on this? I think, I mean, I have to say, I think this might be my favorite album of theirs too. But again, let's go through. So we talked about Precious, the opener.
Mm-hmm.
I like the way you cross the street, 'cause you're precious. Moving through the Cleveland heat, how precious.
What I also like so much is that it was about the band and the sound back then. How she incorporated, or made sure to incorporate, everybody who was contributing to it. Nowadays, the latest album feels more like a Chrissie Hynde album than it does a Pretenders album. And again, I know it's not the original lineup. I know there's a lot of losses over the years, but I miss that element, and that's why this album is so great, because the band was contributing to every element of it: drums, bass, guitar, vocals, everything. So
every part of it is great.
Chrissie Hynde is often described as having like a purr to her voice, and it's between that and the absolute zero fucks given attitude that she brings, it's fantastic.
And that actually, when you say that, Alan, it makes me think like that may be why I kind of forgive like the stuff I don't particularly like of the later stuff, because she's earned that right. She definitely has earned the right to create an okay song that she feels okay. I mean, she feels passionate about creating, and it may not be my thing, but she's still speaking from who she is, and I don't care what you think, kind of thing. And I like that she still has that today, as much as she did back then.
So Precious, great track, and then it's followed up by The Phone Call, which I love that guitar and the way the drum, and then you have the phone. It's fucking great.
Yeah.
Turn up a little bit. I gotta turn up a little.
This is a message. I'm a faceless messenger. I want to see kids. There's a word. Listen to it.
Somebody used to know that time ago.
Yeah. And I like the way the vocals in that part
Right.
kind of going through the ears.
And I love the style of like how she puts this element of like strings these words together and like this repetition. She does that a lot throughout, like at least first 4 albums, where it's like the and she does that with the drums and her lyrics.
Right.
Yeah.
And her delivery, I love how she's issuing demands right now, and the way she's doing it in the song, like, this is a mercy mission. It's just like,
yeah,
it's a creative way to do the vocals on it, and she does a great job. I don't know, it's a good song. It's a pretty darn good song. Anything else, Al, you want to talk about that particular song?
No, just that it's great. There's always in this album, some more so than others, there's just a 60s influence and a 60s almost kind of just like elements of almost Motown. Some, again, song like Brass in Pocket, which we'll get to, has more of it, but yeah.
Again, great guitars in that one. Very just driving. Dun, 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 dun. And again, Chrissie Hynde makes it. She owns it. Next song, Up the Neck. And a lot of these songs really have a very distinct, either they blend into each other, or like when you listen to the phone call, in my mind, I'm expecting Up the Neck to start immediately, because it's kind of a, again, great guitar tones throughout the album. And this is more of your pleasant melodic Pretenders, which
absolutely.
is great too. And I just
it's Show Me the Way.
Yeah. Oh, and the little guitar bits in this one, that little stuff that he's adding. James Honeyman Scott is not like some kind of technically amazing widdly dude. Yeah. He knows how to add some guitar bits that are just right for the song, and just little bits.
Well, and to that note, it's like he's not a show off.
Right.
Like that's what I felt about the new album. Did
you think the solo was too showy?
I think that the guitar player they're using now, I can't remember his name, that he's show offy. And I don't like the show offy. I like the when it's like I'm part of something and we're creating this element where I'm just a part of it and a cog, for lack of a better way to say it. I don't like that, but it's still true that I prefer like what you just said about he puts it in when it's completely necessary and it should be there. And that's what was so good about Honeyman Scott.
I mean, listen to the solo in this song. The solo in this song is like 4 notes. Let me see if I can find it. With the vocal in the back, it's because the song requires this. It doesn't require some kind of crazy.
Yeah.
No.
He's not there for him. He's there for the song.
I know, it works.
It's so good.
So that's Up the Neck. The next song, well, Tip My Hat. I love this song.
Yeah.
I do too.
Let's get into it. Again, so recognizable, and that's just that little, that's just a little simple guitar. And she's great in this.
Yeah.
Now, the one part I have to play of this is that breakdown part later, where right after Hole was 4. This part, it kind of breaks down a little. And then again, his solo part is basically.
So good. It's so fucking good.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
Yeah, he does a little thing. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that shows, we've already talked about it, but what I love about his solos is that rather than doing a lot of like almost like scales, which show like a technical proficiency, that kind of solo, it's more like, here's a little bit of this. Then we go back to the song. Now here's a little bit of this. Now here's a
Right.
little something else.
Yeah.
And it's different each time, but it's great each time.
No,
Yeah.
I think we're all three saying the same thing, which is like he knows exactly what that song needs at that moment. And he was so good about that.
Yeah.
Like I don't need to be the focus. I just want to make the song sound fucking awesome. And he does. And he did. So
All right. Yep. Tattooed Love Boys. Awesome song. Next song's called Space Invader. And for those of you who don't know, I mean, I'm sure there are, that was a video game, an old school video game, which was huge. There was a one summer that it was just like Space Invaders was everything. And I guess it was one of the original games on the Atari as well. But you'll hear, if at the end of the song, you actually hear the actual game being played. Yeah. So let's hear a little bit of that. Beginning here. Oh, well, there's that bass.
There's Pete Farndon.
Great rhythm section. And this one is instrumental, right?
It is, yeah.
This is just and it's a groove, man, and it's a vibe.
Written by Pete Farndon and James Henneman Scott, not written by Chrissie
Right.
Hynde at all.
There you go. And then it ends with the sound of Space Invaders.
Oh.
And then again, when I hear this, I immediately expect to hear such a fucking great song. Such a great song coming up right after that. The Wait. This might be
Oh my God. Yes.
This might be my favorite song. So yeah, The Wait is awesome. Yes.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh boy, you've been forgotten.
This was his fiddly one. This was the rockin' one. Because that's what the song needed. And again, like Alan had mentioned before, it kind of harkens back to like these, I don't know, it sounds like the 60s, like previous part, certainly. Sort of straight ahead rock. And here's Neil Schon Biddley.
No.
And then back to it. And again, those little guitar notes just adding extra awesomeness.
Little flourishes.
And this one ends on a nice hard stop. And it's awesome. Very, very good song. Next track is a cover.
Kinks.
Oh,
Yeah.
Kinks, right.
Her future husband.
She married everybody. No. Yes, a cover. So yes, of a Kinks song. And it is Stop Your Sobbing.
It is time for you to stop all of your sobbing. This is time for you to stop all of your sobbing. There's one thing you gotta do to make me still want you.
Gotta stop sobbing now, gotta stop sobbing now. Yeah, stop.
Kind of nice. And she does the big vibrato in this one too.
Yeah, she does.
Let's see if I can find a
There's one thing you gotta do to make me still want you. Gotta stop sobbing now, gotta stop sobbing now. Yeah, stop.
So yeah, that's a nice cover. It's a nice
Yeah.
song. And the next song is Kid.
Which is funny because I thought this came later
Oh, did you?
in their
Oh, yeah?
career
Oh,
until I re-listened to it. I'm like, oh, it's from the first album. I thought it was like the third album or something like that.
Well, this song in particular, I can hear in the albums we had mentioned before, like Learning to Crawl and stuff. This feel is in those albums. And this again, we're gonna go back to Honeyman Scott's guitar. This is the one where my brother, who was a guitar player, I remember vividly once we were playing this, he said, "Listen to this." He was like pointing it out. The very thing we were talking about is like, this solo is so simple, but it's great. And he was going on about how he loved to get solo, which I'll find now. Yeah, this part here, the solo. Kind of hard. There you go. It's fucking great.
yeah. Yeah, I would echo it. It does sound like something that would come along. It doesn't have the hard drive of the first side of the album. This is the track that opens the second side of the record, and so it does. I don't want to say it seems out of place, but it almost seems like it belongs in another album as well as this album.
I think that's a good thing to point out too, the placement of the song, because it is a second side of the album. A lot of people nowadays don't know that you had to flip over an album.
They don't think in those terms, right?
Yeah, and I do agree with that. That although I love the song so much, it was kind of, if you listen to it the way we do now, is very different than the way we did when we first heard the album, which we would have to go up, flip over the record,
Right.
that kind of thing. And so I think that is pretty unique to the time that it was huge, the vinyl, and doing this. And so I do think that it is good that it was the first track on the second side of the album, because it rings in a kind of a different act.
It sets the tone for a different tone for side two.
Yeah, and side one ended with a more a cover that was a little more that sounded different than the rest of the songs on side one too. Yeah. So Kid opens it up, and then we get Private Life. Now this song, upon listening to it again and really listening to it again, this is the one where I'm like, oh, I'm not sure I'm gonna like this one. I never really think about this one necessarily, and I think it's like reggae-ish, and it bugs me, whatever. And then I listened to it and went, no, it's a great song too. I mean, it's good. And again, I think the guitar, the way the guitar is implemented, is what saves the song for me.
Yeah. Well, I will say
everything's good, but yeah.
I will say this, that they incorporated this into their live album later on, The Isle of You.
Yeah, which is a great album.
Which is great, and the version on Isle of You is actually better than this version.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, and the way they incorporate it into that actual concert is the best way to put it. It's not a concert album, but it is still live. Right. It's pretty great, and I like that version better than this one, even though I like this one.
So it has sort of a different rhythmic vibe, but then it gets into the middle parts.
Such a great drummer. Oh my god, such a great drummer.
We haven't talked a lot about that, but great drummer.
God, he's so good.
And he may be on the new one, but he's been on some of the later ones too.
He's not on the new one.
Not on the new one.
He was on the last one. But the new one he's not. And that kind of bugged me because I didn't like the sound of the new one for the drums.
Yeah. Okay, so Private Life. Very good. And then now we get to the biggest hits. The biggest hit. MTV hit, Brass in Pocket.
And it probably is still their biggest hit. I think so.
Really?
Show Me the Way, maybe.
What about Back of the Chain Gang? That was huge.
That was huge.
But I think this is bigger. In my opinion.
There are, well, in your opinion, that's one thing.
Okay, hold on.
Oh, you're going to look up the numbers?
I'm gonna look up.
I just think that album, I think it was on Learning to Crawl. Or was it Get Close? Those two albums I get mixed up. But I know it was on Learning to Crawl, Back in the Chain Gang, because that was like her immediate kind of song she wrote about James Honeyman Scott and Pete Farndon dying, I think. So it was like so that was right after on that album. But you got to remember, those albums were really pushed. I mean, they had the company behind them. So that's why we heard so much of it and saw so much of it on MTV. There was a lot of promotion. And
Hey,
they broke.
the only Pretender song to make #1 was Brass in Pocket. Yeah.
Okay. Well, made #1. But sales? Quick, do
Well,
some
I
numbers.
I can't do that part, but I can do the actual chart part.
All right.
That's the only
Point
one
taken.
that made #1. So
Awesome. Yeah, well, it's a good song. I mean, it was overplayed, but it's a good song. She has said that she's a little embarrassed about the lyrics. She's,
oh yeah.
Gonna use my arms, gonna use my legs, but that's fine.
But the thing is, she's going to use her imagination.
Well, as an adolescent boy, I was using my imagination too when she was talking about that stuff.
And I will say that most people, even my kids, know this song.
Sure.
A lot of people wouldn't be able to say who the other bands are, but I have 2 kids who actually know this song as opposed to a lot of their other songs. So
Yeah. Yep, Brass in Pocket. Very big. And then we're getting close to the end of the album. This is Lovers of Today. And I think well, let's play a little. Very chill.
Yeah.
they're like, oh, we're getting to the end.
And the lyrics are interesting.
They are. No, it's still it's a great song. I mean,
Great vocals.
Yeah.
yeah, it definitely puts her vocals front and center for sure.
All of the leaves come down every time babies cry.
Yeah, really good vocals.
It's funny because the longest tracks in the album are on the second side. Private Life and this one are the 2 longest tracks. Private Life's over 6 minutes, and this one is almost 6 minutes. Everything else is like 3, 4, 2.5 kind of thing.
Yeah. And this has a instrumental section that's pretty raucous.
Yeah.
Still, the tempo's still there, but it's you really hear that signature
Mm-hmm.
vibrato here. Then yeah, they put a lot of stuff in here. It's all good. It's a good song.
It's all
It's a
good.
good song. And then they finished the album with another really good song that I like, Mystery Achievement. I love it. The little breath she does to cue start the bass and the little hi-hat thing.
Amazing bass line.
It's very good.
It's a bass line that's memorable, and it's like it gets in your head as much as the rest of the song does. So
This is so good, dude.
Yeah. Just 4 great artists that work together so beautifully.
yeah.
And great guitar. Dag, yo, it's so good.
God.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say. I just listened to it. It's great.
There's a reason this is considered one of the greatest rock and roll records of all time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the 12 tracks on the album. there really isn't there's not a bad one in there. I mean, there's some, obviously I like some more than others.
Yeah.
I will say that my favorite tracks are The Wait, Precious, Kid, and maybe Mystery Achievement too. I mean, again, I just keep adding them. Well, that's really good.
Yeah.
And that's really good. But
Yeah.
No, arguably this album has, for me, their best songs, which are The Wait and Mystery Achievement. Those are my two personal favorites of all of their songs. And they're on this album. So
Yeah, for me, it's Precious, Tattooed Love Boys, and Mystery Achievement.
see, Tattooed Love Boy should be there too. I can't just name half the album though, right?
Yeah,
I can, I
yeah.
guess, but it's a great album.
yeah. There's not one song that I would take off that it shouldn't be there, kind of thing. How about that?
Yeah, it's good that it has, the slower tracks that highlight different aspects of like her vocals or even, or the drumming. Like Private Life really showcases like a nice groove, for the drums and obviously the bass. It's all good.
I'm just amazed still that this is the first album.
It's so good.
I mean, there's like very few bands in my recollection that their first album does exactly what this album does, which is create a sound, create something spectacular, and also change music. I think this album changed music in a lot of ways.
I think at the very least you heard this album and you said, oh, well, this band or these artists are going to continue to do stuff that's going to be big. I mean, I think, I mean, unless they all die of heroin overdoses.
Well, okay.
Or cocaine.
Or cocaine. But yeah, I think you kind of knew that this album was great when you first heard it.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I give it a 10.
Oh yeah, I give it a 10 as well.
10.
Oh, well, we don't want to turn.
No, I'm
give it a 9.99.
I'm
10.1.
I give it 4 10s.
4 10s. No, this is a great album. And one of the questions that I pose for Revisionist Discography is, okay, so we have our memory of it and we have listening to it now. I think there is no revisioning going on. There's no. I'm not revising my opinion of it at all. It's fantastic. I probably like it a little more because with age you have different.
Yeah.
You can have more perspectives on things.
Yeah, I would agree.
And it just got better as I got older, and it's great.
And there's not a single track on it that I think that is dated, as far as I can tell. That it's like it was a endemic of the time. Maybe Space Invader, but even that's not really dated.
Yeah, it's just instrumental and it's kind of a bass groove and
but it's also referencing with the last part, like you said, referencing something.
I think maybe, well, shoot, I was gonna say maybe even Brass in Pocket might be the most one that is the most quote dated, but it's not really either.
I don't think so. Yeah.
I don't think it's dated at all. I think it actually the lyrics of it are pretty relevant to the way people feel now as opposed to back then too. So
I think maybe a song like The Wait, which I love, being so in your face and rocky and whatever. I don't know that someone would do that today. They would do it in different ways through production and maybe. I mean, I don't know if people make guitars sound like this anymore, which is a shame. And I don't think a lot of people play in the style of Honeyman Scott, which is sad too, because it's just great, Like if you can say that dates something, maybe, but the actual style and the sound of it is timeless. It's just great.
That the talking about what people do nowadays in a world where
they do bullshit. No.
Yeah, what in a world where they demand clicks on your page, it's really hard to talk about it in that respect. I mean, that's a whole other topic, but I do feel like people nowadays, especially musicians, just try to make something that sells. And not that they
Something
weren't
that will go viral, maybe.
yeah, they not that they weren't interested in making their sound. Pretenders, I'm talking about, weren't interested in making their sound relevant to a lot of people. I still feel like we didn't have to worry about that shit back then. Nowadays,
Someone was worrying about it, but
no, the producers and the studios and the production houses were, the
They were
distributors
worried.
were.
Yeah, I don't know. That seems a little rose-colored glasses to me, but
Yeah, okay.
well, yeah. I mean, the industry is always the industry. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a rare occasion when you have a completely creatively autonomous band come out with an album that's big, or because I mean, again, at the time it was radio, it was different, but it was still, how do I get? I mean, arguably harder to get played, you know, and because you had to be played everywhere, all around the country, around the world on the radio, because there wasn't like a Spotify where everyone in the world can find that song.
Yeah.
You know, you had to rely on some DJ or MTV to put that song in front of you, like Brass and Pocket. It's like, oh yeah, that song, you know, it's good. But anyway, a fantastic album. I hope anyone who hasn't listened to it all the way through, give it a good listen.
Yeah.
That was my cynical wall.
Yeah. I like your cynical wall. Anyway, thanks for listening. I don't have anything more to say about it, but other than listen to it. Thanks again, guys.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. And we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to this GenXplainers podcast. Follow us on Instagram and friend us on Facebook. Just search for GenXplainers and find us on Patreon, where you can support the channel and gain access to extended cuts of the podcast as well as exclusive bonus content. See you next time.